Hi, everyone. Welcome to Never a Slow News Day, transforming 24/7 news operations. I'm Ali Amoli, and I'm a principal industry specialist with AWS on our media, entertainment, games, and sports team. And it's my pleasure today to be speaking with Mike Kralec, the CTO and SVP of Sinclair. Um, as AWS, we have the pleasure of working with customers around the world, over 600 partners in the M&E space. And for me, working with newsroom customers is really near and dear to my heart. Like for the last 20 years, I've had the pleasure of working across a variety of industries. And news is so unique because there's a number of challenges that exist that are hard problems to solve, whether it's taking the deluge of information that's coming in from a variety of sources and making sense of it, to engaging customers on a variety of different platforms that exist, whether that's linear, broadcast, social, new media networks that are popping up. The agility that's needed to be able to cover breaking events and inform and engage the public when it matters most is something that's crucial. And when we think about a lot of these challenges, that flexibility, that agility, those are things that cloud and AWS really excel at enabling customers with. And we're lucky to have Mike here today. I remember your cloud journey started sometime, I think, around 2020. I was trying to remember when we first met and started talking about cloud transformation. Could you please share with the audience a little bit about Sinclair, yourself, and your cloud journey?
Sure. Sinclair is a local broadcaster. We have 185 stations across the United States in 81 markets. They are across the gamut: ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, CWs. And it's really, I think our cloud journey actually started even earlier. We at least started thinking about how, if not specific to cloud, we started to think about how important flexibility, I think, was to our organization in terms of orchestrating workflows and how we operate. So the operating model is really kind of kicked off early on with our media pipeline. And our cloud media pipeline was really dipping our toe in the water in the cloud, and it was saying, if we're going to move to the cloud, where is an area where we think there's a TCO today that we can start with. And that was about getting all of our promo, all of our paid, all of our syndicated content, everything flowing into one centralized ecosystem. Because before this, everything went to a television station first. Like there was no central repository. There were no collaborative workflows or single transcode place for us. It was all about every television station operating on their own independently. And over the years, and I've been with Sinclair for 25 plus years now, and over time, acquisitions and bringing other stations in, everybody didn't run their operation the same.
Yeah.
All of the content wasn't being stored the same. It wasn't being prepared the same way. And it created a lot of duplication of effort for us. So anyway, those are all things that went into really the driver behind the beginning of our cloud journey onto AWS. And we parlayed that into the second phase of this. And that's what we call our cloud media transformation. Our cloud media transformation was really built on top of the media pipeline. Once you have all of your assets in a single location, now we had an opportunity to innovate on top of that foundation. And we built all of our automation and playout to basically to leverage cloud tools. So the media pipeline wrote the availability of all of our assets into a message bus.
Yep.
And our automation system listens to the message bus to pull all of its content. It's basically just in time for playout. And we've been on that journey for about 2 years now. And I think something you'll hear me say repeatedly is it's not, it is about optionality and it's about opportunity for us at Sinclair. So that means, what does being in the cloud unlock for us in terms of flexibility? And I like to use the example of how many processor generations we've been through since we've launched our cloud media transformation, our cloud automation plan. And we've been through 4 different processor generations so far. And we're on AMD now. Maybe we'll be back on Intel at some point, but it's just one example of if we had done things on premise, we would have been in that same processor generation. We would have bought bigger intentionally to be able to support it for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
We would not have been precise in our application of technology to our specific workflows at any point in time. And so that's really the gist of our entire cloud journey has been what innovation can we build on top of the options that we have now that we're there.
Yeah, we have a sort of a condensed version of the presentation today. Like we've been doing these never a slow news day chats with a number of customers, including Sinclair. And that last slide that I skipped over because we're on a compressed timeline today had that little like elastic workflows, like the challenge of being able to, in a traditional hardware environment, try and figure out what's going to be my biggest news day, or what's sort of like, how do I get the right provisioning of capacity? And oftentimes you're over provisioning. You've got like your resources sitting there idle, and then suddenly a bunch of news starts happening, and now you have to figure out how to scale up or what events to cover and what not to cover. I think your organization did really great with, as you were moving to the cloud, making sure you were putting in the right instrumentation to see what actually is happening and how media is being processed. Could you talk a little bit about that?
And that's exactly right. So we not only do we know precisely how much it costs us to transcode a piece of media, we know precisely how much it costs us to store that piece of media. All of that data feeds that innovation process because it is no longer. So I'll give you a very good example. We wanted to innovate on our media processing workflows, and we've just recently switched to step functions and Elemental for doing that. Mm-hmm. And we now have reduced the amount of time it takes for us to process an asset. Yep. And we do it a lot more cost effectively. It's like something like about a quarter of the time for processing and about a tenth of the cost for processing. Simply, and that took 3 weeks. We're not talking about 3 months, 3 years. This was 3 weeks to implement step functions to rebuild our processing. And we're talking about, hundreds of thousands of files that come in on a monthly basis to Sinclair. This is not a small workflow, but these are places where now that we're done that, everybody in the organization, in the media technology side, is looking for what's next on that process. And that kind of goes into sort of the content center transformation, which is the next transformation that we're really looking at. Like I said, we did the media pipeline. We've moved most of our automation and playout to the cloud. We're still in that cycle, although it's now been we've done it a lot of times. It's become a consistent process for us to follow. The next piece of this is, how does this apply inside of our newsroom? And it's not just about the technology. It's also about how do we think about the atomization of media? How do we become story-centric? And really, how do we collaborate better? How do we build on not just the media pipeline pieces and all that, but build on the knowledge that we've got inside of our organization about how we can be most effective with cloud. And that comes down to a lot of our station sharing. It comes down to the centralization aspects of this, having pooled resources, right? I talked about how our automation and playout, how all of the content comes into one location. It also allows our master control operators to be anywhere, to literally be anywhere.
I'm going to actually flip back and forth between these two slides, because your footprint across the nation with the 185 owned or operated stations, and then 65 of those being news producing, like a lot of what you're doing now is really transforming the ability and the speed at which your newsrooms are able to collaborate, right? Was Was that one of the key drivers to moving from the traditional rundown-centric, traditional newsroom computer systems to your new story-centric newsroom management platform?
I think it's about unlocking the innovation opportunities for us, right? And it's not, and we don't know this is probably this is the list as of this moment, right? The whole point of us being in the cloud is for this list to never stop, but for this list to also be influenced by prioritization based on our total cost of ownership. So when we look at, we look at story-centric and multi-platform distribution, when we look at the flexible ecosystem for it to be software-defined, everything that we do here is really, we've unlocked so much opportunity, I'll say, that we have a list of 20 things that we could do. Now, there's a lot more that we could work on. And really that gets us back to the data and analytics, having information about what is going to provide the best value to Sinclair in terms of, in terms of the transformation. So we still have to account for risk. It's still a big, function of this. Change management's a big piece of this, but all of these are really set up to be a flexible ecosystem to give us opportunity to transform as the newsroom and the business needs to transform. The technology is a service provider to the newsroom, essentially.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about, because I've been on the supplier side of some of those traditional newsroom systems where we would have to, however many months ahead of time, schedule an upgrade and figure out what is the potential slower part of a news day, which these days, it seems like there aren't really any slow news days anymore, if there ever were. And then we'd try to do the upgrade, and sometimes we'd have to roll back. And for a large group such as yourself, we probably would be getting through some portion of stations. And before we were even finished rolling out an entire version upgrade across all the stations, a new version would come out, and we'd have to figure out, like, now where do we start upgrading? How does that differ with what you're seeing with your new cloud solutions?
I mean, we're taking multiple updates to a single software system per week. So it's a regular continuous improvement. It truly is software defined. And you may know my background is in software development. Maybe that plays a big part in this, but the ability to not disrupt the news operations is absolutely massive for us. So truly become a partner on the technology side. We had 65 different newsroom computer systems sitting out there. And as we go on this journey, we'll have one newsroom computer system with collaborative tools turned on so that everybody across those newsroom can be successful in helping each other. It really, I think, changes the paradigm completely on how our newsrooms can produce more content to more platforms, and it's a piece we haven't talked about yet. The multi-platform distribution piece here, because our newsrooms have always been focused on the newscast, have always been focused on a limited subset of digital audiences.
Yeah.
And I think that again, I'm going back to the optionality here. We have options now to be more multi-platform, to hit all of the things. If we have a story broken down into those atomic elements of narrative and video, and we want to reuse those assets for reformatting for X, or reformatting for TikTok or Reels, whatever the case may be, I think the key here is we're breaking down into not just the workflows, but the stories and the news packages themselves into the atomic elements that give us the ability to adapt them to an audience that's changing very rapidly.
And it is such a rapidly evolving ecosystem. Like however many years ago when we were talking about linear and digital, meaning just the web pages. And then as you pointed out, now if we look at the consumption patterns where there's large demographics who are consuming the majority of their news on TikTok or on some of these new social media platforms. And who knows how that's going to change as the platforms continue to evolve. That agility, like that ability to, as a new platform is coming out, tailor content to that platform rather than trying to just replicate the same content across platforms, that's become critical to your operations, correct?
Yeah, I think when we think about AI today and what we do with it, I mean, it's very, I'll say it's very structured. Like it is about translation, it is about transcription, it's textual elements. It's very, it's really elements that, while we still have a human in the loop, I think they're fundamental elements. I think as we move forward, I think unlocking, and we didn't talk about this too much, but unlocking access to our archive, improving the metadata elements inside of our archive, being able to expose all of that as one single element across the organization. Yeah. I think that becomes part of these short-term opportunities where you start to see video manipulation, you start to see rough cut editing. I think the thing for Sinclair is that I think we fully expect a human to be in the loop at this point.
Yeah.
We there's not, there isn't creative element being, there's nothing being done without somebody else's oversight. But longer term, yeah, we'll get to the point where there is, video for review by an editor, right? And it'll help on the, potentially on bringing content back into the system that's already got some suggestions and ideas for that content.
And I like the slide you put together here where, as you pointed out, you're focused today on things like the transcription and the metadata enrichment and perhaps some suggestions of scripts or social media post suggestions. We're seeing a lot of these tools that can take all of the corpus of content. Like when I think about like the amount of content that's coming through these newsrooms, whether it's police scanner activity or news feeds or financial reports or city council meetings, and like the traditional reporters and producers who are trying to sort through all of this content and figure out what are the pieces of information that will best inform and engage the audience. Like today, you're actually being able to take all of that content, put it in your story-centric platform, allow people to coordinate on it, marry it to your content, and be able to start seeing whether it's suggestions in terms of summarizations or some of the patterns, or have like these collaborative workflows across your 65 newsrooms. And then you have a whole new range of opportunities to distribute various forms of that content across those platforms, correct?
Exactly. And, going back to the archive a little bit, I think one of the things that's always been difficult for us is unlocking the value of the archive. Yeah. So we've got a lot that's on LTO tapes. We've got a lot in libraries. We've got things that were never digital in the first place.
Yeah.
And so we've been thinking about how we bring a lot of those assets back in and how we enhance our storytelling today using all of the archive access. And having all of that available is one thing, but having the right metadata about that content is something else entirely, because things got stuff, it's tape logs, we have tape labels, we have, slugs, and we have dates, and they sit on a shelf somewhere.
Yes, or in someone's drawer. Like there's that proverbial tape in a drawer somewhere.
And AI is going to play a really large part in helping us unlock the value in that, because what AI is really good at is inference, right? And understanding what might be relevant. So we may know that there's a particular piece of content that the slug is something about a football game, but we know it was shot at, in Des Moines, Iowa. We know it was, July of 1985, right? There's information that we have. There's clues there that help us unlock more information about that particular football game. Maybe it's irrelevant. Maybe it's not. But the point is we can know a little bit about the content that was never digitized before we actually go out and digitize it. We can index on that content. We can bring it into our systems, and we can really think about, and then we can make it available for digitization.
And that's such a key point, like the decades of content that you have across your stations and the comment you made about maybe it's irrelevant, maybe it's not, and thinking about local news where sometimes it's irrelevant until it's not, right? Like the local politician who suddenly come to the national stage, being able to take something that maybe wasn't that high value and quickly access, search for it, be able to get their preliminary speeches or their previous stances on a topic or whatever it may be. The local high school football star who suddenly gets into an NFL team, being able to search for that and get that content and not have it locked in a drawer somewhere on a tape. It must add so much to your ability to tell stories and potentially unlock some new business opportunities as well, right?
And not to have it in another system
Yes.
out here, right? So I think this is a big piece of the content center transformation is bringing all of those interfaces to one, having a truly holistic newsroom system that gives access to that archive. If we need to digitize an asset, that's a process that happens inside of that system. If we need to search it, if it's semantic search, that's happening inside of the ecosystem. If it's editing capability, it's also in like there's not that rough break between systems anymore. And I think that integration is absolutely key to really building building the right packages, building the right news content for distribution.
Absolutely. So on this chart, we sort of talked about like the enrichment, some of the automation that's available in the short term. What about some of the longer term AI-based initiatives that you're looking at? Can you share a little bit, share some of your thoughts with the audience on those? Like the future, like ideal AI automation tools, where are some areas that really interest you?
You're
We were
stumping
talking
me
about
here.
like the real-time research at one point. I think we were discussing like that ability to start surfacing real time, like maybe if an interview is being done, pulling from various sources to bring up relevant content in near real time. Is
I think the AI elements there around the real time about especially on the generative side could influence the creative design. I think still going back to the human in the loop piece though, we really want it to be AI augmented or AI assisted. And but I think the real time nature of AI is going to be influential in the content, I guess, in the creative process.
great. Um, One of the things that I always love to get your insights on is finding that balance. Like I think a lot of times the technology challenges, perhaps maybe some of the, I don't want to say easier, but they're some of the ones that are more solvable. And then there's a lot of like the organizational challenges or the transformational challenges. Oftentimes when we're evaluating different paths to go down, um, there's times where it seems like we have customers or partners who are getting stuck in analysis paralysis, and there's times where even though not all the information may exist, you've been able to lead the team and say, look, this is based on what we know, this is the direction we want to take. Or in one example from a few years ago, I remember on a former team I was working on, we'd come to you with a hybrid on-prem cloud proposal, and you'd said, you know what, like we understand why you're proposing this, but we want to take a step forward. Like just give us the all cloud version. We recognize there may be some trade-offs, but we're willing to make those trade-offs to be in a better position. Can you share with the audience a little bit about your thought process and the way you analyze things and make those decisions?
I'll say every technology leader inside of our organization is also a business person at this point. Each of them are making financial decisions for Sinclair, and they're prioritizing programs based on the financial analysis. We look at it as the technology really is the easy piece of this. It is understanding. I think a lot of the change management, a lot of the financial analysis, it is selling a technology transformation inside of your business is probably the most difficult part. But if the way we've been successful is in breaking down the problems into manageable components.
Mm.
So we're not trying to boil the ocean here. We're trying to, like I said, we moved into the media pipeline, the archive access, like unlocking a lot of those things is really being focused on what are the small steps we can take to enable the larger transformation. And trying to sell a multi-year transformation program that's, tens of millions of dollars, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, and part of you saw on the previous slide, all of those benefits, where that's part of explaining all of the value to the organization, and each of those has a potential value to the org, right?
Right.
So it also, each of them, like a change to each of these also represents a particular risk to the organization. And so the question is, are we managing risk effectively? And does the financial analysis bear the inclusion of these benefits in the overall program? And so, yeah, I think each of our technology leaders really focuses on how much value can they be able to bring to the organization, either in terms of operational efficiency or in terms of cost savings.
And I remember like there have been times where we've been able to, like, that ability with cloud to spin up some instances, try some new things, be really agile. Sometimes it works and then you're able to scale up, and other times it doesn't work and you tear those instances down and move on and check off the box. And like, are there any hints you have to the audience or best practices in terms of encouraging that type of culture of innovation?
I think the fact that cloud can be ephemeral, I think lends itself to the sandbox environment. And as far as tips in those areas, I mean, it's experimentation, I think, is key to the overall process here. If you're not really thinking about what the next efficiency is, or how you can improve your piece of the operations, then I think I just think it's important to experiment. I think it's important to design flexible systems and really focus on, but with a focus on, not because it's cool, but because or fun to do, to focus on it for building something better than what we have today.
Absolutely. And the metrics associated with that, like being able to measure what you have today and put in place the instrumentation to objectively evaluate, are you improving or not? Like, I think that's also been a key part of your strategy, right?
All along. Yeah, we built a data and analytics team really focused on consuming all of the data off of these systems, off of the content center transformation systems, off of a lot of our newsroom systems, off of the media pipeline. We built that on a vendor inside of AWS, and then we picked the 10 use cases that we're going to be able to quantify the value of each of those of a lot of the different systems. And so we continuously look at new use cases, look at new metrics. We continue to use that to then drive some of the operational decisions.
I think that's one of the things that our team loves about working with your team so much is the times where we get on a call and you're showing us a dashboard of, hey, look at what we just, we were looking at the data in a different way and we just discovered this. Like, is there any way that, we can address this or make this even better?
The data cleanliness is, it's nice to start sort of greenfield here, and we have for almost all of these systems, right? And that's been a bigger change management problem for us, but at the same time, it's been important for us in terms of having really having a clean slate for the data, because we use that data over and over again to analyze and to make decisions off of. I think having just having an idea of how you're going to use that data and what data is important to capture right up front
Yep.
is critical, and then being able to revisit that over time.
Absolutely. That agility and the continual improvement is, I think, one of the key themes and one of the things you and your team have done so wonderfully. We are out of time. I really want to thank you so much for spending this part of your afternoon with us. And I want to invite the audience to stick around. We have a happy hour that's starting right now, sponsored by AWS. And feel free to ask questions, stick around, grab a beverage. Oh, sorry, starting at 4. I was 15 minutes early. Okay, so stick around, take a break, come back, join us for happy hour. Thanks again, Mike. We really appreciate it.